Testing. Okay, oh, good.
Members, this is the meeting of the security panel held at 2:30. We proceed to the election. On the 17th of October 2019, 3 members were nominated, Dr. Cheng Chong-tai, Mr. Chan Hak-kan, and Mr. Wu Chi-wai. But since the 17th of October, a lot of things have happened, including the election of chairman and deputy chairman of other panels. For the 3 nominated members, among the 3 nominated members, Mr. Wu Chi-wai has been elected as the Economic Development Panel, Deputy Chairman of the Economic Development Panel, so he's disqualified. He's not qualified to run in this election. Although the nomination made on the 17th of October was valid, all right, so I have to take out his name from the list. So we have 2 valid nominations, Mr. Cheng Chong-tai and Mr. Chan Hak-kan. The floor is now open for other nominations. Mr. Gary Fang? I want to nominate Ms. Tanya Chan. I have a list here. I have to go over the list. Okay. You are a member of the panel and you have not been elected chairman or deputy chairman of another panel. So, Ms. Chan, your nomination is valid. We have to have a seconder. Mr. Lam Chok Ting seconds it. Do you accept it, Ms. Tanya Chan? Yes. So, 3 nominations. Are there further nominations? Mr. Lam Chok Ting, I have a question. You have a list, right? Setting out members who have been elected chairman and deputy chairman of other panels. Can you tell me whether someone is not qualified? Because I can't remember the full list. Okay. Some of these are not our members. All right, I have a list. Chairman and deputy chairman of other panels. And some of these are not our members, but never mind, I just read out the full list. Development panel, Ms. Tony Chia, deputy, Mr. Luk Chung Hong, manpower, Mr. Ho Kai Ming, deputy, Mr. Chu Hoi Dik, FA panel, Mr. Christopher Zhang, deputy, Kenneth Chan, and Anne Zhang, manpower, deputy, Rebecca Chan, and then environmental, Stephen Holt, and then welfare, Kwong Chun Yu, deputy, Xiu Ka Chun, housing, Wilson Law, deputy, Andrew Wen, HA panel, chairman, Lau Kok Fan, deputy, Au Lok Hin, food safety, chairman, Tommy Zhang, and Helena Wong, deputy, and commerce and industry, Mr. Jimmy Ng, deputy, Alvin Young, transport, chairman, Yik Chi Ming, deputy, Chan Hang Pan. So 3 panels have yet to elect their chairman and deputy chairman. That is AJLP, Constitutional Affairs panel, and this panel. Mr. Gary Fang, I want to nominate Mr. Chan Chi-chun. Okay. Do we have a seconder for that nomination? Mr. Xiu Ka-chun. Okay. You're here. Do you accept the nomination? Yes. So 4 candidates have been nominated. Further other nominations, Mr. Gary Fan? I want to nominate Mr. Lam Chuk Ting. Lam Chuk Ting. Do we have a seconder? Mr. Au Lok Hin is the seconder. Do you accept the nomination, Mr. Lam? Yes. Further nominations? Mr. Gary Fan? I want to nominate Mr. Au Lok Hin, Chairman. No? You can't nominate Mr. Au Lok Hin. He's the Deputy Chairman of Home Affairs Panel, so that's a no. Further nominations? Yes? A presiding member. I'm find a bit strange that why the chairman of a deputy chairman of a panel cannot be the chairman or deputy chairman of another panel, but it doesn't apply to the ESC and PWSC. Well, if it's a question about the system, the rules, we can't handle those issues here. Please take follow-up action on another occasion. Well, the Committee on Rules of Procedure is not very inclusive. Mr. Charles Mock, I want to nominate Mr. Jeremy Tam. Do we have a seconder? He's not here. Have you secured his agreement? Yes. Do we have a seconder, Mr. Siu Ka Chun? All right, we have one more nominated candidate. Other further nominations, Mr. Gary Fang. I want to nominate Miss Claudia Mo. Okay, do we have a seconder? Mr. Gary Fang nominates Miss Claudia Mo. Mr. Siu Ka Fai seconds the nomination. Do you accept it, Miss Mo? Yes. All right. Further nominations, Mr. Charles Mock. I nominate Dr. Fernando Cheung. He has agreed to this. He cannot attend our meeting today. Do we have a seconder? Mr. Siu Ka Chun seconds the nomination. Further nominations, if any?
鄭議員
Ms. Claudia Mo, I want to nominate Professor Joseph Lee. All right, he's with us. Do we have a seconder? Mr. Siu Ka Chun seconds the nomination. Do you accept it, Professor Lee? Yes. Further nominations? Mr. Au Lok Hin, I would like to nominate one more member. Mr. Chong Kok Kwan, who seems to be wearing a bulletproof vest. I think he's a very suitable candidate. All right, do we have a seconder? Mr. Siu Ka Chun seconds the nomination. Mr. Zhang, do you accept the nomination? No. All right. Further nominations?
我數五聲㗎咯喎
On the count of 5, Mr. Charles Mock. I nominate Mr. Gary Fan. All right. Seconder, Mr. Siu Ka Chun seconds the nomination. Do you accept it? Mr. Gary Fan, do you accept it? With pleasure.
啱啱提名
Any further nominations? Ms. Claudia Mo? I'd like to nominate Mr. Dennis Kwok. I have already secured his agreement. Well, he's not with us, but you have secured his agreement. Do you have a seconder? Mr. Siu Ka Chun seconds the nomination. So one more candidate. All right. Other nominations?
有冇
Further nominations? Mr. Au Lok Hin, presiding member. I want to nominate Mr. Ted Hui. Mr. Hui is not with us. Have you secured his agreement? Yes. Do we have a seconder? Mr. Siu Ka-chun seconds the nomination, so one more candidate nominated. Further nominations? Mr. Ao-Lok-hin, I would like to nominate Mr. Chu Hoi-tik. No, he's not qualified. He's the deputy chairman of the manpower panel. All right. Further nominations?
唔好意思，主持，咁我
Presiding member, I would like to nominate Mr. Leung Yu Chung instead. Mr. Leung is not a panel member.
仲有冇？五聲啊！
All right. Any further nomination? Mr. Gary Fang? I want to nominate the member who was barred from enter into this council, and he must have felt a lot of things about security. Mr. Ma Fung Kwok. I want to nominate Mr. Ma Fung Kwok. Do we have a seconder? Mr. Siu Ka-chun. Seconded. Mr. Ma. You are considered a suitable candidate. Do you accept it? No more nonsense. I don't accept it. All right, not accepted. All right, further nominations.
On
the count of 5, 5, 4, 3. Dr. Joseph Lee. I want to nominate Mr. Yip Kin Yuen. No. He's the deputy chairman of the education panel. No. He cannot be nominated. All right, further nominations. 5, 4. Professor Joseph Lee. Mr. Yip Kin Yuen. I nominate Professor Joseph Lee. We have already, Professor Lee has been nominated. All right, further nominations. Mr. Kenneth Leung. Nominate Dr. Kwok Ka-kei. He's not with us, but he has agreed to this nomination. Do we have a seconder? Mr. Siu Ka-chun seconds the nomination. So one more candidate nominated. All right, further nominations. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so nomination is now closed. So we have 13 candidates.
係好啊，等陣先啊。係，哇，要放大啲啊，睇唔到。
Please blow it up. It's not very legible. All right, 13 candidates. We move on to the next step of our procedure. Yes. What about election forum? There are 13 candidates. Why don't we do this? Every candidate should speak for a minute, and then there's a Q&A. Uh, 30 seconds for questions, 1 minute for answers. You have 1 minute for self-introduction, and then 2 questions can be put to you as a candidate. So at most 26 questions. 2 questions for each candidate. 30 seconds for questions, 1 minute for answers. I think that would ensure a quick process, and purpose will be served, right?
Ms. Claudia Mo, I'm a bit concerned. This is the security panel, but we see that some members really can't tell right from wrong. They are totally biased. and they allow those with authority to do whatever they can. So how can we talk about protecting security or upholding security? Ms. Claudia Moore, we are now talking about whether we should hold an election forum. I doubt the effectiveness of such a forum. Maybe that would be a waste of time. So you suggest not to have it? Well, then we should have it, just to expose their true colors. This is very much the security panel. I'll not hin. Well, please lower your hand, because you are blocking my view of the chair. I query very much whether we need the security panel at all, even. Well, what you say is not of help, because in any case, we have established the security panel according to our procedures. So I have talked about my suggestion. Mr. Au Nok Hin, Chairman, I have a question mark over your proposed arrangement for the forum. You said that each candidate would be given 1 minute to introduce themselves. Yes, and then there will be 2 questions put. Do you mean that all members can ask twice or ask 2 questions each? Is my understanding correct? So you shouldn't be allowing the candidates only to ask questions. Well, to put it simply, we have several dozen members here. So among them, 2 can put questions to the candidate. A 30-second question. You said 2 30-second questions are allowed, but then we've seen a problem of meetings at the security panel recently. And that is several dozen candidates keep asking the same candidate questions, but the candidate is not allowed sufficient time to answer. So whenever he's asked a question, he'll be given 1 minute to answer. So after every 30-second question, the candidate is allowed 1 minute to answer. Is that correct? Well, let me put it this way. Say, for example, Dr. Zhang Chengtai and Dr. Kwok Ki, well, after they've talked each for 1 minute, well, let me put it again. Here, Dr. Zhang Chengtai introduces himself for 1 minute, and then 2 members can ask him questions. Then each question should last 30 seconds. And after that 30-second question, he can answer in 1 minute. So only 2 members are allowed to put questions to him. What if more than 2 members would like to ask him questions? Well, the first 2 who raise their hands will get the chance to ask questions. Chair, I think it's unfair to the candidate. But that's only my suggestion. But if you have some other views, say, if you say you would like to, well, how many members do we have here? 50 plus. They come from different, several political parties. Maybe you suggest that more members can be allowed to ask questions. Then I will look at, say, the total time allowed, and then maybe I can make adjustment to the length or the duration of the questions and the answers, say, for 45 seconds to answer, 20 seconds to ask a question. Chair, I have this suggestion. I remember that at the Finance Committee, Mr. Chen Kim-po has complained about this. He said that all the members are criticizing or putting questions to the same member, and he should be given sufficient time to answer. Let me suggest this. Well, whenever a question is put to the candidate, the candidate should be given at least 1 minute to answer the question. If there are 2 or 3 members asking questions, then he can be given, say, 2 to 3 minutes to answer in total. I don't believe that all the 50 members will pose questions to all the 13 candidates. But I have to be mindful about the timing. If all the 50 members are allowed to questions, then that would be problematic. Say if maybe the member can ask a 15-second question, then, well, then the candidate will be given some time to answer. So I think we should put some restrictions on the timing. Maybe the candidate will be allowed 3 minutes to answer after having heard all the questions. Because the one putting the question will only be given 15 seconds. I really don't understand your proposed arrangement. Let's stick to the present practice. Say, for example, if the candidate is a government officer, and normally we will say be allowing 4 minutes to one candidate to question another candidate, and the candidate can answer immediately. So irrespective of how the arrangement is, the candidate would just be given 4 minutes in total. So the question is, how many members are allowed to ask a question, and what is the total time allowed for answer? I have put forth my suggestion, and that is one member will get 30 seconds each to ask a question, and then 2 members will be allowed. Maybe you can suggest how many members should be allowed to ask a question. Do you want to build a limit to the timing or the number of members asking a question? I'll suggest that you discuss with the clerk. Maybe you can suspend the meeting and then write up your options. Chair, you seem to be very impatient. Please allow me to finish. You said you don't believe that some 50 members will ask put questions to the same candidate. But in politics, you can't be sure about anything. Maybe the 50 members would like to put questions to the same candidate. And I am one of the candidates. So how come that you get to decide which 2 members will ask me questions? Well, I will rely on the computer. It will be a first come, first served basis. I think your approach is not fair. Please write down your proposed arrangement. I'm not sure whether we put a limit to the time or the number of questioners. Maybe you can suggest the duration, the time proposed, and the number of members allowed to ask a question. Please give me some suggestions before I work out the timing with the clerk. You object to my proposal? Then please give me some suggestions. Mr. Gary Fan, I have 2 proposals. I think your proposed time is too short. Self-introduction, 1 minute is not enough. And there should be 2 minutes for self-introduction and conclusion, respectively. Why did I agree to stand for election? Because I would like to stand for election together with Mr. Gary Chan. He's been doing a lot of good things, and we've asked for a special meeting to be held on the extradition bill. He declined the request. So there should be 2 minutes for the questions, and then for the candidate asked the question, he should also be allowed 2 minutes, and then that would be a fairer approach. So as long as a question is asked, the candidate should be allowed to answer. So that will be 2 minutes each for the question and the answer, respectively. I don't agree to the emergency regulations ordinance and the prohibition on face covering regulations and so on. And I don't agree with how the council conducts its business in the midst of the extradition bill saga. You are the candidate. Don't share your platform here. So you suggest that there would be 2 minutes for the questions and 2 minutes for answer, and then 2 minutes for the self-introduction and 2 minutes for conclusion, and in the middle there would be sufficient time allowed for questions and answers. All right. Any further views? Maybe I can take on board your views before I talk to the clerk. No? Ms. Tenyo-chan, Chair. Well, maybe we should not be allowing 3 options, as in the case of the FC. Maybe we can come up with a couple of options so that we can make our choices more easily. Yes, I'll try that with the clerk. So let's suspend the meeting for the time being. Suspend the meeting. How many minutes? What is... When is it now? You'll have to print it out. 20 minutes. Well, they do have experience. We were just they're just varying what's been done in the past. 20 minutes. So the meeting will be held only after 20 minutes. We'll try to be as soon as possible, but it will still be at least 20 minutes later.